on everyone, welcome to Free Kick, the AFLW Fantasy Pod. Today is very exciting because it's our final clubs and days review. We've made it to the Bulldogs. So, wow, 18 clubs in not quite 18 days, but you know what? We gave it our best crack, and that's all that matters. So today, I'm joined by my co-host, Will. Once again, Will, how's it going?
Not too bad, Mel. How are you going? We're finally at the end. It's been a big undertaking once again, but we've done it. We're at the end. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, I was just saying to Liam, I was like, oh man, that was exhausting. And then I remembered that I came back from my holiday halfway through. I was like, yeah. I really can't talk. You two have been doing all the work here. No, but it's exciting. It's one of my favourite things to do, this preseason review. Really gets me excited for the fantasy season. So let's get into it. Bulldogs, tell me about the Dogs. How have they been going?
Yeah, Western Bulldogs, been one of the teams that have just continued to be there or thereabouts throughout their history, and they were up at the pointy end again last season, 7-3, finished 7th, so they're in that group of teams that were really pushing up towards those teams that did finish in the top 4, and they lost their first final against Collingwood. In terms of the team, it's probably the most settled team in the competition. They had barely any ins and outs, with the only major change that we can really point out being Nell Morris-Dalton heading over to the Pies. But beyond that, they seem to be fairly well settled.
Yeah, really similar team, which makes this an interesting one from a fantasy perspective. We get quite excited when there's trades because then we get to see players unlock new potential or shuffles around in the lines. But yeah, with not a lot of movement, we're probably going to be talking about some of the same players that we were this time last year.
Yeah, for sure, and it probably also means that a lot of the change in how they're going to improve is going to have to come from a lot of it coming from within, and probably a lot from some of their younger players.
Yeah. Speaking of younger players, we had a very interesting interview with Rylie Wilcox. I wasn't actually on that one, but...
But I was, so...
Let's throw to it now then.
G'day everyone, we are very lucky to be joined today by a Western Bulldogs young gun. We have Rylie Wilcox with us. Rylie, how's it going?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Firstly, thank you for joining us. How's the preseason going so far? I understand you've had a bit of an interrupted preseason.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Glad to be back with all the girls. We had a pretty long break, so yeah, just glad to get into it. Yeah, watching the girls, we're looking pretty good. No, I love it.
2022 ended with a first week finals loss for the Dogs. So how has a group of you really gone about discussing where to next? So what's the message sort of heading into the new season?
Yeah, we want to create a free-flowing, I guess, game style, make it really exciting for the fans, and yeah, that's what we're aiming for round 1 for the rest of the season. So yeah, that's what we've been focusing on, just giving what the fans want, I guess. So yeah, excited to see what we can bring to round 1 and for all the rest of the games.
Yeah, absolutely. And you yourself, you were taken pick 22 for Dogs last year, and you ended up playing 10 games in your debut season, which is pretty exciting. Was that something you were expecting, or?
Yeah, no. So obviously I had school in that year, year 12 too, so doing BCE. It was a bit of a struggle, but the club got around us, me, Heidi and Keely. And yeah, we tried to rock up to many trainings as we could. Didn't expect to play, and then when I got called up for round 1, I was like, oh my God, holy crap. Like, didn't expect it whatsoever. But yeah, I thank Berkey and all the team for giving me the opportunity, and yeah, I guess it was a domino effect, and yeah, so grateful for the opportunity that they gave me throughout my doing year 12, I guess, and having faith in me. But yeah, no, I loved it to bits.
Yeah, and it was quite a unique situation last year for a lot of players, yourself included, with having to play with school. How did that go? And did you play any school footy in that time, or were you just purely focused on the AFLW?
Yeah, no, I didn't play school footy during that time. It was fully focused on Western Bulldogs. It was a struggle. Like, sometimes we would have sacks on like a day after training, and it would be a bit hectic, but the club really supported us through that hard time, and also my school supported me, like changing sack dates and stuff like that. So yeah, the support was amazing. They really understood where we came from, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And yeah, just the support was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you yourself played a bit across the wing and half forward line, but as a school-aged player, was it intimidating coming up against some of the bigger, more experienced players? How'd you feel playing that role?
Yeah, definitely. Well, a winger, you don't really go into the inside pack, I guess. So it suited me well, being my height. Obviously, I'm quite short, but yeah, I just played to my strengths, which is strength and agility, and yeah, just backed myself in those contests. And yes, it was a bit scary, but once I got out there, I was like, right, let's do this. Let's back yourself. Let's play to your strengths, and you'll be fine. So I guess kind of I was a bit scared at the start of the season, but then I was perfectly once I got to the game, I was like, all right, this is just another game. Like, so control the controllables, I guess. I can't
Yeah.
grow much taller. But yeah, play to your strengths and you'll be fine, I guess is what I say to myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever accidentally get into a matchup with one of the opposition rucks or anything like that, or did you just steer pretty clear of that?
No, I stood very clear of that. But yeah, there's a few tall wingers in there. And I remember looking up to one and I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna beat you? But yeah, no, just I block it out of my game and like focus on myself in a way and just do me. That'll be all right.
Yeah, for sure. And you did mention you're obviously fairly short in stature, but you're actually not the shortest player on the Bulldogs list. I believe that is Ange Gogos. Do you ever line up on her and think, gee, I'm feeling pretty tall?
Nah, nah, I don't, nah. Daisy Bateman's my height too, so yeah, nah, don't line up against anyone. And I don't know, I feel pretty short out there, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned you're really happy with the faith that the club put into you last season, and it really did pay dividends. You end up polling fifth in the Rising Star, which is an incredible achievement. After such a great first season, I suppose, what are your personal goals for improvement heading into 2023?
Yeah, so at the moment, my focus is just to try and get to round one, considering my injury. I guess I'm not really focusing on like the small goals at the moment. But yeah, once we get into the season, just see what I can improve on each week and what I can do next game. But yeah, definitely just holding myself accountable and knowing what I need to improve on each week. But yeah, at the moment, my aim is for round one.
Yeah, that's good. So the rehab's going all good. I suppose you're on track for round
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah, on track. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's great to hear. And I guess the Bulldogs, they've had a pretty strong core of players throughout their history, in particular in the midfield. So you've got, Captain Ellie Blackburn, Kirsty Lamb, who's also been in the All-Australian conversation a lot of times. Have those on-field leaders really helped you in your development, especially with school and things last year? Has anyone in particular taken you under their wing?
Yeah, I'm going to say Ellie Blackburn. She's an incredible captain. I've learned so much from her on not only on the field but also off the field, professionalism and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, she really looks out for me and the young ones, and she always checks in how we're going. But yeah, no, she's incredible, and also like in fact, everyone to be honest,
Mm.
they always look out for us youngies, and yeah, but definitely Ellie Blackburn has taken me under her wing and showed me around and how to do this, what not to do. So yeah, no, she's incredible, and I love her to bits.
Oh, fantastic to hear. Last season, we did see some incredible breakout years, not just yourself, but also in the ruck from Alice Edmonds. I guess the first question we have is, can you believe that she didn't make the All-Australian team? We sure can't.
Yeah, I think everyone was a bit shocked, but you can't control that. So she's had an amazing season last season. So yeah, I'm excited to see what she can bring this season too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the flip side of that coin was here at Free Kick, we were really pumping up Celine Moody to be the one that had the
Yeah.
breakout year in the ruck. And she still had a really good year, but mostly playing up forward, which threw us a little bit. Has Nathan Burke thrown any curveballs around this preseason that you've seen?
No, I don't think so, not yet. But yeah, I guess you're gonna have to wait for the season to see what he throws at you. But yeah, no, so you never know these days with Berkey.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, you've got a perfect out in saying, "Oh, I haven't been seeing it. I've been in the rehab group, so
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
I'll give you a pass on that one." But I suppose you've had a fairly settled list. Has that sort of continuity in the group, regardless of those positional changes, been a bit of a focus? We know that, as we said, there's a strong midfield core, and there's been sort of minor changes to the group. Is that sort of a big focus, basically continuing to improve on what you do well rather than doing wholesale changes?
Yeah, definitely. I think just like improving our fundamentals. I think
Mm.
if we get that right, we would do what we want to do. Guess just like really executing our skills right, and we can play the way we want to play. It would be very beneficial to us. So yeah, just focusing on the small things, and it will then paint a bigger picture. Excited for this season for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And finally, question we love to ask, which is, who at the Dogs do you reckon is set for a really big season this year, big breakout in the Alice Edmonds mould?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Ellie Blackburn. I can back her any day. Also Izzy Pritchard.
Mm.
Yeah, she had a really good season last season. So yeah, I'm excited to see what she brings to our team. Excited for everyone, to be honest, for this season. So yeah, but definitely Pritch is who I'm excited to see. Yeah.
No, fantastic, and I love the loyalty to your skipper, giving her the dues.
Always.
No, we love Ellie Blackburn here, so we might wrap it there. Thank you so much, Rylie, for coming on, and good luck with the rehab, and good luck for the season ahead.
Thank you so much, Will. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Oh, that was a great one to listen to, and, just momentous occasion to reflect back on how many player interviews we've had in this Clubs and Days series. I mean, it's just been amazing, and what a one to go out on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good with words.
It was great to have a chat with Rylie, a young superstar, as we heard from her. Amazing to be able to juggle going to school with actually playing AFLW football, and we hope for a really big second season from her, though we do know that she's had a few injury problems over the pre-season, but definitely one to look forward to, and we thank Rylie for coming on and being our final guest of this Clubs in Days series.
Woohoo! So, getting into our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, I'm looking at the names here, and the first couple I'm very familiar with. Let's hit it. Who's your number one?
So the number one is defender Katie Lynch. And Katie Lynch is a player that fantasy players from last season and the seasons past will be very familiar with, because she's a player that is always in that contention to be a top 5 defender. But we've sort of talked about this with some of the other players in this series, that when she's playing well, she's good. She's got a ceiling in the 90s, finished last season with a 94 in that final against Collingwood. But if they come up against a team that's just that little bit taller going up forward, she can have games where she just doesn't score because she has to play a lockdown role. And ironically, that actually happened against Collingwood in season 6, where she scored an 11, which was a really good comparison. So last season, she was fairly consistent until a patch right near the end of the season, where she went on a 3-game run of 32, 42, 43 against a range of opposition. Melbourne, the reigning premiers, and West Coast, one of the teams that were the easiest to score against. So it really is role dependent for Katie Lynch. Having said that, I still think she's a fairly dependable pick. You know that she's probably going to average quite easily mid to high 50s, possibly in the 60s if she does get a full season playing more as the interceptor rather than the key fullback.
Yeah, interesting. So definitely up and down and a little bit unpredictable, like you said, based on the matchups. What type of scenario do you see her fitting well in your team? Is she like a set and forget, or are you going to try pick it ahead of a specific scenario?
I think for me, I think she's an upgrade target. I think that because we know that her role can change, I'm probably hesitant to pick her straight off, especially when there are a few other players we've talked about that I think present better value. But at the same time, if you can get her in around that round 6-7 mark as your, D4 or even D5 through upgrades, I think she's a really good player, especially if she is on a really good scoring run.
Yeah, makes sense. And your number 2, got a shout out from the back of Rylie's interview there. Take us through this one.
So yeah, number 2, speaking of good scoring runs, is the captain, Ellie Blackburn. She's a player that I love watching just from a footballing point of view. She's explosive. She's been one of the best players in the competition pretty much the entire competition.
Yeah. And
one of the things we've always noted about Ellie Blackburn is she always starts the year really, really fast. So it's one of the things that I would say is, if you're going to pick Ellie Blackburn, it's not the worst thing to start with her. If she comes on a tear at the end of the season, similarly, maybe pick her up then. We've talked a lot about the midfield, and there's a lot of other options in the midfield that I think are probably better value. She does have a ceiling over 100, but I think that around she's in that awkward price / average where, she's going to be a good player for you, but for the same price, you might be able to get someone who goes a bit higher, or you could go down to one of the injured Collingwood players, for example. It's a bit of an awkward one for me.
Yeah, a bit of a mid-price madness going in on here. Remind me what she's priced at?
She's priced at her average of 84, which is probably still a bit unders, but at the same time, Blackburn's averaged pretty consistently in those mid-80s throughout her AFLW career. So I can't see her jumping up into those high 90s. I think an average of 90 is probably the best you're going to get, which isn't bad by any stretch. It's just when you're playing the numbers of this game, it mightn't be enough to really justify picking her straight away.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Oh, number 3. Love to see it. Underrated.
Yeah, number 3, Alice Edmonds. Said it in the Rylie Wilcox interview. I'll say it again. Absolutely robbed of the All-Australian Blazer last season. The reason I put her so low, she's probably a more reliable scorer than both Lynch and Blackburn, but quite simply, it's because premium rucks aren't that interesting to talk about, because Alice Edmonds would quite simply be a set and forget or an upgrade later in the season. Simple as that. You know what you're going to get from her. She's going to average around that sort of 60 to 70 mark if you're really optimistic, I suppose. If you're really optimistic, she could push up towards Brie Moody, who did average 77. Edmonds coming in priced at 71. I don't think there's a whole lot of upside with Edmonds, but at the same time, and this is what we've said about a number of these rucks, is you pick her, she'll just score your 70-ish throughout the year. Great.
Yeah. Possibly a bit more of a unique one because Brianne Moody is such a well-known name and the top tier, I guess, for that set and forget ruck position. So she can give you similar value, maybe a little bit more unique.
Yeah, and it's basically the exact same thing we said with Gabby Seymour. She's almost the exact same player in a fantasy sense as Gabby Seymour. Both of them averaged within 0.1 of each other, 71.4, 71.3. They're both owned by 14.67 of the competition. You can't really go wrong with them. I just will say that they're just part of a pack of rucks that you could pick, and that's what you do with them. You just pick them.
You set them. And then you forget them.
Yep, set and forget.
Oh, I love it. Number 4, an interesting one.
Yeah, number 4, with the Bulldogs, we've mentioned that they're very set in terms of how their team makeup's going to be. So we've had to sort of look for a bit of interest in terms of the players. And the player I picked at number 4 is someone we were quite keen on last season, but it was coming off a major injury, so it's not surprising they didn't quite reach the heights that we thought they would, and that's Gabby Newton. We know Gabby Newton is a super talented player, former number 1 pick. She was basically playing as a key forward for the first time last season. She looked good in the role. It wasn't a particularly fantasy-friendly role, it must be said. She started the season pretty well with scores of 86, 46, and then 67 against some weaker opposition, and then from there she only scored above 50 once. But I think what's important is she sort of built into the season. She's now had another pre-season in the role, which is something that we talked about in our interview. I think she's one that could present a bit of value. Again, this is quite a specky pick, I will say that. But she's a super talented player, and there's a reason we were super interested in her last year. We know she's got a reasonably good ceiling. She's got a highest ever score of 99, a few 90s when she was playing more as a half-forward flanker, I suppose, in her earlier career. So if she can sort of mix and match those two roles, I don't think it's unreasonable for her to jump up in average up to around about maybe a 55-60, which would be pretty good for a player who is priced at only 40.
Yeah, no, that's some gosh, if she can jump up to 55-60, that's possibly 20 points increase, so that could be huge.
Could be huge, but I will say once again, as a forward like she is, if she is playing more as that marking target rather than sort of an on-baller, I suppose, playing forward, the role doesn't necessarily lead itself to fantasy football, but we know she can score well, so if you're willing to take a punt on her like the 1% of the competition in the official platform that currently are, who knows, you might have the bargain pick of the year.
Yep, games made on unique, so that could be it. And if we thought number 4 was specky, I don't know, but I've actually never heard the name of number 5 here. I don't know if I've just been... The Bulldogs, for some reason, seem to be a little bit of a black hole for me that I never seem to venture too deeply into, but talk us through number 5.
Yeah, number 5, I had to really do a deep dive into the Bulldogs list to find it, because I put the first 4 down in my 5 pretty easily, and I had a blank space for number 5 for, I reckon, about 2 weeks, just trying to think of this. And the player I've settled on is Maggie Gorham. She was picked up as a free agent. She was a former pick number 4 for GWS, so clearly there's some talent there. She stepped away and retired after 1 season, never played a game for GWS, and so was a basement price rookie. So we obviously don't know a huge amount about her other than her draft profile and basically what we heard from the Giants, which is that she's a pretty talented mid-half forward type player. But there's clearly a reason that GWS have picked her up. GWS have picked her up as in the draft, and there's another reason why the Bulldogs have now picked her up again. And I'm basically looking at it thinking, at that sort of price, if you're looking for a speculative pick that may become a bit of a cash cow later in the season, perhaps, maybe not as a starting rookie, but someone to go down to, maybe just keep an eye on her, because she's one of those players that if she gets into the Bulldogs side, you're probably going to be able to downgrade maybe another player to get her into your team to make some money, and maybe she'll be a good scorer.
Yeah. You said mid-forward. What's she listed as?
She's listed as a midfielder.
Okay. Which
makes sense because she is a midfielder, but I suppose she's played a bit across both lines as a lot of young players do. So, yeah, one to keep an eye out for. I think could be an interesting talent just in terms of from a football perspective, because it's always disappointing when we lose young talent like that to the game early, and hopefully she can have a really good second crack at it.
Yeah, and that's why I love this this kind of format is, even though, I've been staring at fantasy names for quite a while in AFLW, still get to, hear other opinions and see names that I haven't considered before. So now I'm going to, tuck this one away in the back of my brain for when I need a future downgrade option in the midfield. And, good to know.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and press you here because I know what you're going to do, Mel, and I'm going to try and push something out of you. But Mel, quickly, your Mel special. I don't like this, but go on.
So my Mel special is that these are, particularly the first four names that you've thrown out here, are probably the best fantasy potential players at the Bulldogs. And I'm not too sure if there's anyone else that we really want to be considering right now. Looking at the ownership of the game from a couple of days ago, so 13th of August, the Bulldogs players, you've got Lynch as defender, 17% owned. Next highest, you've got Edmonds as a ruck, 15% owned. Then you've got Blackburn as a mid, 6.5% owned, so we're dipping down already. And then it kind of falls off a cliff. There's no forwards that are highly owned so far. My key takeaway here for the Mel special is Bulldogs are made for scoring actual points, not fantasy points, and therefore maybe don't consider too many other Bulldogs players for your fantasy squad right now, which is a real special that I've saved for the final episode, which is I have no recommendations at all.
I'm actually shaking my head here. There's one player that I'm going to force you to talk about because you've written their name down here, and that's Britt Gutnecht. She's the most highly owned forward at the Bulldogs at 2.5%. Can you give me anything about why that might be the case?
I've got to say, I've been trying to figure this out, and I don't actually know. Do you have any ideas?
I will admit it has baffled me a bit as well, especially considering her priced at, which is 40. So she's not basement priced. She suffered a broken leg last season. The only thing I can think of is that she is a promising young midfielder who is listed as a forward. So if she can come back in and find a place in that Bulldogs midfield, that might be one of the reasons to consider her. She may be one to keep an eye on if she starts the season well. Could be a great downgrade for an underperforming premium.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of speaks to the fact that no Bulldogs player, in the forward line at least, is owned by more than 2%, other than Gutnecht, who, as we've said, isn't exactly a must-have pick. So, yeah, it's quite an interesting one, and it does, as you say, Mel, speak a bit to the fact that the Bulldogs probably aren't going to be the most fantasy-relevant side this year.
The only other angle I can maybe see is she only played 2 games in Season 7, so she has been awarded the discount. So, I mean, from a literal, her price stat that she would be coming in otherwise, because she did play, I believe, majority of Season 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Majority. She's got potential there. It's just been discounted on her, so maybe she's one that if she gets named and she plays straight away, boom, like cash gen right there.
Yeah, I can only assume, as you say, like, she's priced at around about a 30, 32, 33 for an average of 40 last season. There's a bit of upside there, I suppose.
Yeah, she's not the most consistent player. I mean, she had the 4 scores in the, low 20s, low to mid 20s, and then some great scores up there in the high 40s for that 30 average. But yeah, I'm going to, you know what? Maybe I'll just chuck her down as a watch and wait.
Nice. I like that.
Slap one of those on it. Yeah, awesome. Wow. So that's us. That's our 18 clubs in however many days.
There were 18 days. It wasn't consecutive days, but there were 18 days.
Yes, because no 2 episodes came out on the same day.
Exactly.
Would you look at that? Yeah, awesome. So to anyone that's still listening to our 18 clubs in some days, thank you very much for sticking with us. You can find us. I mean, we've actually already put out our best 21 for the Bulldogs, so stick on our Insta for more interesting content because we will be doing cool kind of collaborative reviews of the different lines and then building our fantasy team together. Stick around on the Instagram and we will be releasing new content soon. You can find us on Insta and Twitter at FreeKickWPod. Where can they find you, Will?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at WillH_VI.
Nice. And I am on Insta as HiMelD. Thanks for listening and we'll chat to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.